Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. It is an absolute delight to introduce you to Debra Fine today. Debra is a formerly shy, tongue-tied engineer and is now an internationally recognized conversation and networking skills expert, motivational speaker, and best-selling author. Debra's book, The Fine Art of Small Talk, How to Start a Conversation, Keep It Going, and build networking skills and make a positive impression, has been translated into over 24 languages. Her recent media appearances include CBS Sunday Morning, The Today Show, CNN, New York Times, and Fox Business News. Her client list includes associations and government agencies, as well as JP Morgan Chase, Encana Oil and Gas, Comerica Banks, Lockheed Martin, Google, United Airlines, and Procter Gamble. And Debra, it is such a joy to have you here today to speak about a topic that is so relevant and important to many people out there. And so thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Vered, it's my pleasure. And your expertise with leaders is, I really welcome that you recognize the importance of, I call it small talk, but of rapport building and cultivating connections and improving your presence, how important an ingredient that is to the success of a leader, an emerging leader, or whomever. So thank you for having me.
Your joy. And I absolutely believe that the ability to build that rapport, that energetic synchronicity with people is absolutely essential for having influence. From being able to help people really listen and accept and at least be curious about things that could be very helpful to them and, of course, the organization. And so let's go ahead and start with how did you get into this art of small talk?
Well, primarily because I couldn't do it. And that, honest goodness, the truth is, as you mentioned to the audience, I used to be an engineer. So that's what my education is. That was my profession, not for very long. I happen to have been very good at math. So I was really encouraged to be a teacher, but the other option they gave me was engineer. And I chose that engineering, truthfully, because I did not want to chat with people. I was a very awkward person. Currently, during our program together, I hope I'm behaving like an extrovert, but I'm an introvert. It comes easily to me now, but I would always look at people like yourself, Vered, and we all know we go to an association event, hospitality suite, and we see all these people born with the gift of gab. And I would look at them and I think I admired them. I can't even remember anymore. I certainly was intimidated by it and I just wished I could do it, but I knew I couldn't. So that was the end of that. So often the leadership for the teams that I was on as an engineer would say, well, after you work the exhibit hall, because I'd have to stand behind an 8-foot table and represent a project to people like Barrett that would come up to the table. And I did that very well. I was very well trained. But they'd say, go into the hospitality suite and mingle. And I just think, well, I'm one of those people that do as I'm told. I got straight A's. I'm always trying to be the best I can be, but how do you mingle? What do you say? I had no clue. So I had this epiphany that maybe you could learn how to do it. Maybe you didn't have to just be born with it. Maybe you could learn how to do it. And so I changed my approach, my attitude, my mindset about it. I observed people, I did research, and I changed. I didn't change completely. I didn't become accomplished. I just bit by bit. And ultimately, I had the next epiphany, which is that I wasn't the only one. I thought I was the only one that needed this help. I just thought everybody else could do it, whether it could come to business and or even socially or romantically. I just thought, I'm just a loser. I'm just a loser. And so I spent a year's worth of time on research, everything, icebreakers. What do you say to launch a conversation with someone, whether they're a stranger at an event and or an acquaintance that works for you, but who you on occasion interact with, conversation killers to avoid, even exit lines I researched. How do you get away from people that are holding you hostage with their story of their holiday vacation? And you need to go, but how do you do that gracefully? So that's how I came up with it. I thought there are other people. And by the way, I thought they're not just engineers, because there is that stereotype that engineers, and it's true about me, are dorky, and I am dorky. But there are so many other professions, whether it be banking or law, or obviously IT, because that falls under engineering, but teachers, they're skilled at talking to kids, and they're skilled at talking to parents during the conference, but put them in a room on back to school night and they don't mingle with the parents because they don't know what to say. So I really opened my eyes to the fact that it wasn't just dorky, inept people like me, but all kinds of people. And that's what I used to launch this business.
Thank you for sharing that story. I connected personally with a lot of it, not only because I'm an engineer by training as well and fellow introvert, also because, I too at some point thought I couldn't do it. Like, I'm just not good at it. There's something wrong with me. Why am I not feeling comfortable? And so I believe that many people have some of those thoughts. I remember years ago working with somebody who we were talking about her networking and going out there, and she was a leader and really wanted to get her message out. And she said to me, Vered, I just don't think that I'm interesting enough. I think that people will find me boring. I'm not good at it. And so there are so many tactics out there, many of which you're going to train us on today, including hopefully, those icebreakers and, how to connect, the conversation killers, the exits, graceful exit, all of that. And I'd love to start with the inner side of it as well. Like, what are you seeing as some of the obstacles that people have in their inner world to that art of small talk?
Well, and I think you're the expert at mindset, and I am not, but it's this negative self-talk that first of all, just telling ourselves we can't do it or we're not good at something. Well, how would you be good at something that you're telling yourself you're not good at? But also small talk is demeaned. I did it myself. Who want to talk about sports, talk about the weather, Vered? I mean, I have more important things to talk about. Small talk is just a waste of saliva. Who would want to learn how to do that? So I think part of it is self-talk, part changing that mindset, but the other mindset of an introvert and or a shy person, I think, is that the world is watching me. Everybody knows I have no one to talk to. Everybody knows that I'm standing over in this corner by myself. And here's a fact. Nobody knows you're there. I mean, unless you're a celebrity, if you have someone in your listening audience that is a celebrity or is so, I guess, physically attractive that people look at them when they walk in a room. But for the rest of us, Debra, nobody noticed you were there, and nobody notices you're standing by yourself. So get over it. I believe that introverted people and shy people are probably the nicest people on the planet. However, we are so self-centered socially that we actually think a room of 50 or 500 knows that we have no one to talk to. So that's another part of mindset that I ask people to really consider leaping over, because it's not a factual reality at all. And instead walk into a room with the mindset of, how about looking for people like me who are standing by themselves? Because I never noticed those people before, Vered. I noticed all those extroverted people with people around them, or all those people in a clique, or all those people talking to each other. That's where my mind was on those people. I wish I could be like that. And now what I know is that I need to, number one, walk in with confidence. In my case, I always walk in with confidence, but it took a long time to build confidence. And there's strategies for that, but also for me to be kind-hearted and thoughtful as a leader, and look for that person that walks into the meeting who's getting their coffee and is by themselves. Walk up and say hi to them and greet them. And there are certain things you can say to them to connect with them, instead of sitting at the conference table, waiting for the meeting to start with my own cup of coffee, my own device, as a leader, and just getting my notes ready. Well, your notes should have been ready before the meeting. You should have been prepared before you entered the meeting. How about you get up and mingle with some of your team members as they enter the room to make them feel comfortable? So,
yeah, thank you. And I never really thought about that. The fact that, I guess I had that too, that when I'm like by myself, I think other people are noticing that. And there's this whole narrative that goes on in our mind. and what that means, right? That we are alone and, we're not engaging in conversation. And the other mindset around, small talk, being, belittled in a way, like it's just not important enough. I've heard many people say, and truthfully, I felt it myself at times, that, it's like, I want to get to the like meaningful conversations, right? The hard stuff, the deep stuff, the real stuff. But the truth is, and I got this from reading your book, is that we won't get there unless we first engage in small talk with people that we don't already know. And so it's kind of like something that we need to do in order to get potentially into those, more meaningful, thoughtful conversations, the more heart connected stuff. And so,
I'm sorry to
yes.
interrupt you, but I just want to say, I believe now my mindset's different. Small talk is the appetizer for a relationship. So it starts with small talk to develop that business relationship, or romantic or social. And if it doesn't start with small talk, let's say I negotiate with you over a price or selling something, or I'm selling to you, or I'm providing a service to you, that's business. And then if I include small talk, maybe I don't do it at first, but if I include small talk, that is how we develop business relationships. So it is the appetizer for those much bigger conversations, Farida. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I love that. And so would you be willing now to kind of, let's shift into some of those incredible tips that you have? There's so many, there are so many of them in your book. And so maybe we can start with like the icebreakers, kind of like how do you first engage, especially with people that you don't already know, and then maybe some tips for how to maintain the conversation, how to exit the conversation gracefully when we need to do that, and whatever else you think is important for our listeners to learn from you.
You bet. And let me give you, just because I mentioned that situation for a leader at a meeting before it starts, because this is so critical. There's a quote I use from Jean Le Carré, who's a fiction writer. A desk is a dangerous place to view the world. If you're sitting and waiting for the meeting to start in a face-to-face setting, and or just walking down the hall if you have face-to-face team members, it is up to you to engage them in conversation. And most leaders don't do it either because it doesn't occur to them, or they don't know what to say. So let me just start there with that example, and then I'll go to complete strangers. When you're interacting with acquaintances, that means people that work for you, people that you know, but they're not in your inner circle. You don't know them well. They're not in your family. You're not on a regular chatting level. The best way to start a conversation is not with how are you, Vered, or how's the project, Vered, because you're probably, number one, going to get a one-word answer, but also Vered's not absolutely certain that I mean it. I'm the boss, I'm the leader, and I say, how was your weekend? Maybe I just mean hello, because conversation has become so rhetorical that even if you and I were girlfriends, Vered, and I said, how are you? What if I don't mean that? What if I just mean hello? And here we are headed into holiday time. And whether you're in the office setting or anywhere else, everyone's going to say, how was your holidays? And you don't know if they mean it. So when I interact, and I suggest this to leaders and emerging leaders, because stakeholders and emerging leaders and team members need to interact with their leadership in order to move up and be visible. They can't always wait for someone else to launch into the conversation. But my favorite ways to launch a conversation with people that we sort of know are with questions like this. And conversations aren't always started with questions, by the way. I'm just giving you an example here with questions. And that is, my favorite way is to say, catch me up on the project, or what's new on the project, or bring me up to date on your family. If I know enough, if I'm comfortable enough with you that I know you have children, or I know you have a spouse, and I know your sisters live in town, or anything like that, I don't say, how's your sisters? I don't say, how's your kids? I definitely don't say, how's your spouse? Because what if you've, dumped your spouse? That's not a good question. Instead, what I say is, catch me up on your life since the last time I saw you. Bring me up to date on your life. What's new with the family? Catch me up on your kids. Bring me up to date on the project. People are stumped to get out of that without a full sentence response. They're just stumped. and which is good. We want a full sentence response if we can get it. So bring me up to date, catch me up on what's new with, and you fill in the blank with what works best for you considering the situation. Okay, so now let me answer your question, Barrett. The best way to start a conversation with someone, especially a stranger, is to use what I call free information. So free information is the information that I have there that's free. And one source of free information that I like the best, it's your safest bet, is free information about occasion, location. Okay, so if I'm at an event in, I live in Denver. So let's say I go to a networking event in Denver. The free information I have is at that moment, everyone is in Denver. Everyone in that room is in Denver. We're in Denver. So the free information I have is, tell me, we introduce ourselves, of course. And I don't say, what do you do? I'm going to get to that later if you ask me, Vera. I don't ask people, what do you do? Unless I'm at a meeting, we all work for the same organization, or let's say I'm an architect presenting to a construction company and I'm there for that reason. I might turn to the person on my right and say, tell me what you do for this construction company. Then it's okay. But otherwise, at a networking event, I don't start with, what do you do? And I don't try to label people at any situation like that. So the free information I have is, we're in Denver. So are you from Denver? That's how are you from Denver? If they are, I'll ask where they grew up. Have they ever thought about living somewhere else? Have they ever been away from Denver? Or if you're not from Denver, I'll ask you where you're from, what you missed the most about where you came from. Okay, that's an example of free information. Free information is, if I attend a networking event for the association of fill in the blank, what is the number one successful ingredient you get out of this association? Or what have you heard about the speaker? Because we're all going to hear the speaker today. Or what other associations are you a member of? So you can use that at a national meeting, at a chapter meeting, at a whatever. Free information about occasion, location. How did you get involved with this charity if we're at a charity function? So now we're at a meeting or we work together. What got you interested in environmental design? What prompted that? If I know the free information is, we're at an environmental design company, how did you get into healthcare? So that the best way is free information about the occasion, location. What brings you to this meeting? What do you hope to get out of it, etc. So now there's other sources of free information that are handy. One is free information about appearance. And what I mean by appearance is, if you see a lapel pin, ask about the lapel pin. If someone's wearing a hat and it has a logo on it, even if you don't know what it stands for, tell me about your hat. So that really works if you're out and about, or if I'm at a meeting and I see somebody with a water bottle with something on it. That's how I start the conversation, is, what's your connection to that? If I'm at your home, you invited me and and you're my boss, I'll say, tell me about that picture, because that's free information about possessions that you have. We have to be very careful about free information about appearance. And I'm in the workplace. Obviously, I can't make a comment about your appearance per se, or I shouldn't, or about your clothing choices or anything along those lines. So that's the best way to start a conversation. You didn't ask me, but I'm going to say, Vera, that it goes back to mindset. The critical piece here is, it is up to me to take the risk. There's risk involved here. I may approach you. I may attempt to engage you, and you may decide within a minute that you don't want to talk to me. My icebreaker is not going to work. It's just, you can't make people talk to you. And here's the problem with networking for leaders or anyone. There are transactional people out there that network just to get something, and they see my name tag and it says keynote speaker, and they're there to sell software to the attorneys that are in attendance. And I say, hi, I'm Debra Fine. What brings you to this conference? Or what do you hope to get out of it? Or what did you think about the opening day speaker? And they say, oh, it was fine. And they're off. And you think, what did I do wrong? My icebreaker must have been terrible, or I must be too tall. I'm too tall. Or there's something wrong with my clothes. I mean, that's how I used to think because I was so introverted. Instead, they saw my name tag, or they saw one of their clients, or they need to go to the restroom. It's not about your icebreaker. They decide before you open your mouth whether they're willing to talk to you or not. It can be something as simple as, hi, I'm Debra Fine. I don't know anybody else here. What brings you to this conference? And that will be enough to start a conversation. I bet it would work with you, Verit. I know it would work with me, but with some people, it doesn't work because they have another agenda. So I want to reiterate how important it is in order to be a great leader, a good networker, is to take the risk of walking up to people and engaging them in conversation. We can't hope they'll do it for us. And remind yourself of what I sometimes, if I'm overwhelmed, I often have audiences of primarily men, especially in construction. And the night before, I'm invited to go to dinner. So I just tell myself, take the risk, walk up to, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's far riskier to return on the airplane back to Denver or to drive on the highway. And that's what I tell myself in order to get over that feeling of, oh, this is so overwhelming. I don't want to walk up to anybody. It's not as risky as it appears when I logically think about it. So take the risk of walking up to someone new. It will work. Not every time, but most of the time.
Such great tips. And I'm so grateful that you brought up this, concern that people may have, when people don't necessarily want to engage or stay engaged with them. That it may have nothing to do with them. And I think it brings us to this concept of detachment. So we can control the controllables, right? When it comes to these kinds of conversations, we can have a genuine intention to be curious, to get to know someone. We can do the preparation, right? Everything that you're teaching us today. And, at the same time, to just know that we're doing our best. And if it doesn't play out the way we want it to play out, that's cool too, right? There are other people that we can connect with. There are other times that we can practice and to release the attachment that it has something to do with us. Because as you're saying very clearly, it may very well have nothing to do with us.
Right. And you bring up another point, whether you meant to or not, Verit, and that is that one of the reasons people don't like small talk or demean it is because we have no control. You brought up the word control. For instance, I happen to know about you. You're a trainer, in addition to being a coach, and you're a keynote speaker. Okay, I bet you're great at that. I mean, I haven't had personal experience, but I bet you're great at that. But you know what, Verit? You're in control. When you're the coach, you're in control. If you're coaching me, I don't even know if you made a mistake. Guess what happened? I'm a keynote speaker. So when I stand on stage, people say, oh, the number one fear in the United States, social fear, is dying. Okay, well, the second greatest social fear is the fear of public speaking. Well, I public speak all the time, and I'm an introvert. But you know why I'm not scared anymore? Because the audience has no idea that I blew that joke, that I forgot to mention this, that I didn't. They have no clue. I'm in complete control. I get to end on time. I get to decide when I do the activity. I get to do everything. Teachers do that. Lawyers do that. Project managers do that. We're in control. Put us in a job interview, walking down the hall with a candidate that we are really seriously considering. And that's the time for small talk because we have to go up an elevator and then we have to walk down this long hall. We're not in control anymore because we're not doing the interview yet. We're just establishing rapport. And guess what? If the candidate thinks this is an awkward person or what a cold person, sometimes people appear cold and arrogant who are they just don't know what to talk about. This is why people don't like small talk. It's because we don't have control if we hit it off with people or not. And there are a lot of skills I can offer today, but let go of that. There is no control of small talk. And we just have to go with the flow and hope that every tool that we use brings us to success.
Brilliant.
Oh,
and it's really cool to have some strategies as you're sharing with us today as well, so that we can do our best to access those in the moment. Right? Whether it is asking about the hat or what's, the brand on the water bottle or whatever it might be. And so you mentioned earlier that there are some things that you have researched that are real conversation killers. What might be some of those that we want to avoid?
Well, a big one. And when I say this, I want the audience to take a pause and think about this word. And and I'm going to guess what they're thinking. I'm a fortune teller too. Vera, I'm going to say the word monopolizer. Okay, so my guess is anybody that thought about that word for just a moment thought of, oh, their brother-in-law or their boss or whomever. And guess who they didn't think about? Themselves. Nobody ever thinks, especially quieter people, oh, we're never monopolizers. Let me tell you, if someone shows an interest in what you're talking about, they give verbal cues. Really? Oh, then what happened, John? Marianne, I can't believe it. That is so great. Oh, tell me more. We'll become a monopolizer before you know it. And this is what a monopolizer is. More than 5 minutes. And that's really pushing it. More than 5 minutes about your project, your new idea, your vacation, your child. You have become a monopolizer. Conversation is supposed to go back and forth like a volley, not like a batting cage. So when someone shows an interest in me about whatever it may be, I have a rule. I'll answer their question in a thoughtful way, not a one-word answer, a sentence or two, and then I throw the ball back. So tell me about your last vacation. Tell me about what you're working on now. What's on your plate? So that the conversation goes back and forth. So that's an example of a conversation killer. And I'll tell you that most people, especially quiet people, think they're never guilty. The talkers are guilty, and they still don't blame them. They still don't label themselves monopolizers, but that's a whole different problem. The extroverts that they just tell a story for like, okay, we're at a table of 8. When are you going to look across the table and say, so tell us a little bit more about you, Sally? I mean, that's what a good conversationalist should do. That's what a leader should do, is make sure everybody is included. So I have many more, but how about this one? This often happens in the professional setting, and that is I call it the matchmaker. So let me illustrate a conversation. Oh, you can't believe what's been going on. They have cut back our resources to just skin and bones now. Because of fuel prices going up, we have had to do no hiring. We're unable to meet deadlines. It's been a nightmare here. And this is the response. That's nothing. You should see what they've done to our group. In our group, they this, and this. So in a way, that's somebody that tops the other person. Okay. They top. This is what a matchmaker does. Matchmaker, and they're both negative. A matchmaker, I say, so Vera, bring me up to date. What's new in your life since the last time I saw you? Oh, Debra, I'm so excited. We went on a vacation. We went on a hiking trip in Switzerland. And this is my response. I almost interrupt you. Oh, I either say, oh, I've done that. Or I say, I've always wanted to do that. I've been looking at hiking trips in Switzerland, and now we're talking about me. Well, how did that just happen? You asked her to catch you up on her life. She told you she went on a hiking trip to Switzerland. How about the next thing you say is, so Baird, what was the highlight? Or what'd you enjoy about that? Or tell me more. I know about where I went on vacation. I know where I want to go on vacation. What I don't know about is Baird. So that's the matchmaker. I mean, to just go into gender for a second, women are very guilty of matching and men are very guilty of topping. But it's the same ideas. Instead of when somebody says this situation is brutal, we had to cut back on this, and this is happening we can't hire. This is what we should say to them. Not, oh, it's worse for me. We should say, so what do you see as the light at the end of the tunnel? Or how have you managed to keep morale up? Or what's this like for you? That is the appropriate response rather than topping with your sad story. So I have many conversation killers, Farrah. So you let me know if you want more.
Those are fantastic. And I think we've all experienced that, either on the giving end of that or on the receiving end of that. And now we can be much more conscious of it.
Be conscious of it.
When we're noticing. And, one of the other things that I think was really helpful in your book is body language. because a lot of conversation is even more like body language, tone of voice, and of course the energetic. So tell us a little bit about body language.
Well, even right now, Vera, your audience may be a lot of listeners, but some are viewing us on YouTube. So I've been guilty of this. My goal is to look at the camera's eye. That's body language. It's very important so that the viewer thinks I'm looking at them. And yet, because I'm vain, probably insecure, I am constantly distracted by myself. Now, I should eliminate the view of myself, but for some reason, I still cannot let go of that. Because I guess I want to make sure that I'm smiling. That's the other thing. I've thought to myself, smile, smile, smile. And this is virtual. This isn't even face to face, which in a way makes it harder, I think. And when you're face to face, you don't have to remember to look at the eye of the camera. You do have to give eye contact to everybody. I think your listeners know that. They're leaders or emerging leaders. But here's the scoop on body language. Another illustration for your audience. Picture someone at a hospitality suite or a networking event or the reception or award ceremony, and you can see them. They're sort of messing with their hair. They're a little slunched over, not completely. They're sort of fidgeting with their hands, and their arms are crossing their body, and they just don't look comfortable. They don't. Can we all see that person? We've seen them, her, they, all the time. Okay. Now I ask you, do you think that person is doing that on purpose, appearing ill at ease? Is it possible that they are doing that on purpose? No, it is not possible that somebody would do that on purpose. The same goes for somebody that sits back in their chair as they're interviewing someone or having a conversation with one of their stakeholders. You're a leader, but you're comfortable in your own chair, in your own office, and you sort of lean back in your chair and you're listening, and maybe you cross your legs. Do you think that person is aware that their body language is saying, I'm so cool, I'm not really listening? Because someone that appears to be really listening moves forward, looks forward, bends forward, looks like they're eager to hear the next thing the person across the desk is saying. So I provide these illustrations because I don't think people are aware of their body language. I just gave you 2 examples of body language where I don't think a leader would want the person across the desk to think they're either bored to tears, that they're cooler than school. I think that we just get comfortable in our own ways and neglect our body language. So everyone, be aware of your body language at all times. Unless you're at home and relaxing, of course. But I walk into a room, I put on a smile. Smiles do not come naturally to me. I'm sorry to say, it's just not who I am. I put on the smile. I make sure I appear confident and relaxed, whether I do or not. And then so whatever you think you can do to exude that positive presence, please do it. Please look like you're listening with your body language. Please be aware of appearing comfortable, because nobody wants to be around someone that feels uncomfortable to them. So those are just some of the areas of body language that are important, I think, Vera.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm curious about, now that many of us have virtual meetings, how is that different now, right? I know you mentioned a little bit about kind of looking at the camera. What are some really great tips to help engage in small talk, or just to connect with people, to build that rapport online?
Well, I think that's my belief is, whether it's virtual, and then I'll give you some tips, virtual or face-to-face, here's our goal as leaders or emerging leaders. Put a picture frame of small talk around every business conversation that you can. So before or after the business conversation, whatever it may be, provision of service, selling the widget, what a speaker, whatever. Okay, before or after, small talk. So virtually, even today, I purposefully, I do it all the time, so it didn't take a lot of thought. I said to you, where are you today? Now, why do I do that? Because you never know where these people are anymore. You're virtual, you don't know. Are they at their home? Are they at their parents' house? Are they in, and maybe they won't tell you all the time, but you could, if you find out that they're home, so, where are you? Where do you live? Is that where you're from? If you have a minute or two of time, especially if you're a leader, you called the meeting, okay? Hopefully you opened up the meeting a couple minutes in advance. That's the key here, Okay, you're the leader. Open it up in advance. Somebody pops on early, just like if they entered a meeting early, that's who you do your small talk with. Because first of all, kudos to them for being early. Nobody's ever early to these things. So, and then, of course, Zoom likes to give us our Zoom updates as we're clicking on, like, give me a break, Zoom. You've got to stop doing that to us. Okay, so they're late. So say to them, where are you today? Or catch me up on your life since the last time I talked to you. So small talk is just as important virtually as anything. But here's the other thing. So those of you on YouTube can see Vered's office. Okay, if I'd had time and we're on a time schedule, plus she's in charge today. She's in control. She gets to decide when we end this conversation. She got to decide when we started it. So I didn't want to take up too much time with small talk. I did a little of it, and then we talked, and then it was time to get down to business. Okay, there's a lot of free information in on Vered's screen. There's scales up there. There's a globe. There's some kind of a statue. I think those are fresh flowers. Well, that's interesting. Are they fresh flowers? Are they from her garden? Did somebody give them to her? Oh my, I mean, she's given us, and then there's all those books. So she's a reader, or she's a faker. It's one of those two things are happening. You see those people on the news and they have all the books behind them. And sometimes I wonder, why don't you read a few of those books? Some of our government leaders, but that's a whole different. So I could ask you, tell me about those books. Are they self-help books? Do you read? There's so much to talk about with Vered if we had 2 minutes for small talk. So those are just virtual examples right there. Where are you today? And anything. Now, a lot of people blur their background. Okay, that's cool. So you can still ask them where they are today, or you can ask them something like, what are you looking forward to this weekend? On Wednesday, you can do that. Okay, on Tuesday and Monday, you can ask about the past weekend. The other free information we have that we didn't go into, everybody, it's November. I think we're going to play this in November, Vered. Okay, it doesn't get easier than now. What are you looking forward to about the holidays? And guess what you get to do through the end of February? Well, right up to Valentine's Day. What was the highlight of your holidays? Or what did you enjoy the most about the holidays? So, I mean, folks, there's so much to talk about virtually or face-to-face. But it's your responsibility to take the risk. And one thing we didn't talk about as far as mindset that I'd really like to get in, because I think it's critical, especially for leaders, but I think for all of us, is to assume the burden of other people's comfort. This is a key task I write about in my book and I share with my audiences. It is up to me to make you feel comfortable when we're in conversation, walking down the hall, at a networking event, at a table of 8. It is not up to me to make you feel comfortable if you're a class A jerk or abusive in some way. So let's set that aside. But otherwise, I was the type of person that hoped you would make me feel comfortable, that at a table of 8, some vivacious person would show up and just do their thing and I could sit there and eat. I don't get to do that anymore. It's up to me to assume the burden of other people's comfort.
I love that, because it's taking ownership, and I think it's empowerment, really, not expecting anyone to make us feel a certain way, but taking that action. That's right.
That's right. We introverted and or shy people, extroverted people don't worry about this because they are comfortable, but they make so many mistakes in conversation. But they're comfortable. At least they think they're cool. So that's always good. But we all make mistakes, but take it away from being so centered on me and put it on other people to make them feel comfortable. And that's another way of feeling much more comfortable for myself, is looking after others.
I love that. And it goes back to the intention, right?
Right.
When you engage with people in small talk or any kind of talk with a genuine intention to learn about the other person, to give care to the other person in some way, in whatever way we can, then things are just naturally easier because it's not about us. And so before we complete here, if you don't mind, just a quick minute on a graceful exit from a conversation, because this is something, again, that many people struggle with. You're engaged with someone, but you need to go, talk to somebody else, or whatever, but you don't know how to end it in a way without hurting the other person's feelings. So what tips?
Vered, you just knocked it out of the park. There are 2 reasons people don't leave people. One is they're, as you just pointed out, they're worried about abandoning somebody. That's one primary reason. But the other 50% of the time, you know why we don't leave people? Well, Vered, now let's imagine you and me at a networking event and I get to meet you. Why would I ever leave you? We have related business interests, right? We are both engineers, right? You're so comfortable for me to be with. Why would I leave you, Vera, to talk to those strangers over there that I have never met? So I'll just hang out with you. That's why we don't leave people. Okay. So just a couple tips real quick. The best, most of us say, I need to meet the speaker. I need to get some coffee, whatever. Just make sure you do it. A lot of people say, I need to get coffee, Vera. And on my way to the coffee pot, I run into, oh my gosh, Joe, it's so great to see you. You know, what is Vera thinking over there? She's thinking I blew her off. But I didn't mean to blow you off. I really wanted coffee, but then I saw Joe. So this is what you say to Joe. Joe, you want to join me? I need to get a cup of coffee, or I'll be right back, Joe. I'm getting a cup of coffee. Whatever you say, if you say you're a leader, I need to get back to my desk. I have a proposal due in 2 hours and I haven't even started it. And as you're walking down the hall, somebody else interrupts you. Don't allow it. You want to walk down the hall with me because I have a proposal that's due in 2 hours and I haven't even started, or I need to get back to you. Because if the other stakeholder sees you walking down that hall talking to somebody else, you forget about rapport. You have just, the culture is not good. Okay, but one of my favorite ways to get away from someone, Vera, is, and you're going to do it to me in a second. You almost just did it to me. I believe you said one last thing. So that's what we're going to do with people. Okay. So Vera's in charge here. You need to be in charge in a very kind and thoughtful way, just like Vera did it. And I will say, somebody's talking about their vacation or their trip or their project or their brilliant child. I will say to them, you know, I've got about a minute left because I've got a client over there and I want to touch base with her, or I've got about a minute or two left because I promised myself I'd meet 2 new people at this event. So I need to make my moves. But before I go, okay, that's the white flag. I'm letting you know, this is almost over. You can get out of this with dignity. You really can. Here we go. But before I go, tell me, what would you say, you know, the number one highlight of your trip was? Or before I go, tell me, what do you see as the outcome of this project ultimately, like return on investment? Because I'm going to take off in a minute or two. Now, does that work? Usually. Does it work with a monopolizer? Not always, right? So if it doesn't work because they just cannot stop talking about themselves or their child or their whatever, then you say, as I said, you know, I'm worried that they're going to start the lunch and people are going to sit down. I need to get over to that client or she will think I'm ignoring her.
Wow. Yeah.
Favorite way.
I love it because it's very graceful, as you said earlier, and it's setting expectations so that
it is.
Need to be more abrupt. It's not. It's less likely that the person will take it personally because we've, you know, raised that flag and we've given them a heads up that we need.
And you did it with me. People do this all the time on TV. You'll hear them. I have one last question, or we have 30 seconds left on NPR. We have 30 seconds left. Let's do this in real life, but so that the person like me has a time to wrap it up. You gave me time to wrap it up. You didn't interrupt me and say, gotta go. We're done. Filming is over. That would be sort of hurtful.
Well, I would so be grateful if you shared with our audience how they can learn more about you, because you've given us such awesome tips and really profound mindset shifts when it comes to engaging in small talk and connecting with people. And I imagine that they're curious to learn more. How can they do that?
Well, I'm grateful to you, Barrett, for asking that question and inviting me to be on your program, and I get to be with your audience. So thank you for that. The best way to reach out to me is via my website because my phone number's on there. Yes, I use the phone feature on my phone. I know that's pretty unique these days, but I do. And I'm just old fashioned. But I'm going to give you my website in a second. It has my phone number. It has my email. It has everything about me and my book and how to get it and etc. So it's www.debrafine.com. So Debra Fine is DebraFine, DebraFine.com. But of course, the engineer that I am bought all the Debra Fine. So you could spell Debra almost any way you could think of, and it'll get you there. But it's DebraFine. Like, how you doing? I'm fine. I am. Farrad, it's been so fun to be with you. And I really appreciate the very thoughtful questions beyond like the tools, but how we think and how we feel, because that's where so much of what we do in our lives emanates from, is our mindset.
Oh. Well, all my love to you, Deborah. Thank you again for
Thank you.
your incredible insights and things that people can apply right away to feel more comfortable with others, which I think is the beginning point of connection and greater harmony in our world. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Vera.